What does the rise in restaurant food delivery from the COVID-19 effect have to do with the CPG industry? In today's dynamic, interconnected economy, it only takes you playing a business version of the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon to quickly realize that any large shift of the economy has just as strong countereffects, mostly unintended, to just about any other sector of the economy. Before we get started, it's important for you to decide which side of the fence you're on with kind of trend analysis and the COVID-19 effect. Either you believe that COVID-19 created a bunch of new trends, or you think that it accelerated already in motion trends. I believe any trend that became apparent to the mainstream public because of COVID-19 was already in motion and really just kind of got accelerated 2 to 3 years to the point that people were really paying attention to it. In the case of restaurant food delivery, COVID-19 definitely accelerated an already in motion trend. I believe that trend has been, and will continue to be a secular trend, so not something that's going to be seasonal or cyclical. And that view of the trend of restaurant food delivery being secular probably is not something that is collectively held within the restaurant industry. And honestly, if it was, you would have seen a lot of those restaurants be a lot more ahead of the shift. So then when it did hit, you didn't see as many problems as we're having now when these businesses were being forced to close for the in-dining experience. Note, when I say most, I am going to be explaining some different examples of restaurant brands or entrepreneurs that were ahead of the curve, and they did understand this powerful secular trend towards digital commerce and on-demand delivery. So what's at the core of this challenge that the restaurant industry is trying to overcome? So most state and local governments are not allowing the established restaurant operating model to function at full capacity because of the global health pandemic. Now, knowing that problem, what has been the biggest adaptation for the restaurant industry to try to overcome this new constraint or restriction into their operating model? That has been that they've chose to adopt and integrate a lot more third-party food delivery apps. And this shift has major implications long-term to a ton of different stakeholders within the food and beverage industry. And we can start at just like Dish Types, Cuisine Types, and how they can be affected by the rise of third-party food delivery apps. Are there certain types of food that are just better for delivery? I think anybody that has had any food delivered during COVID-19 or even before that knows that there's certain food categories or dishes within a cuisine type that just holds up better to that third-party food delivery app experience. And you can actually see through Grubhub, they do like this state of the plate report each year. They talk about just some trends and top sellers in each of the categories throughout all their markets. For breakfast, there's a lot of wraps, tacos, burritos, and things like acai bowls. Lunch seems to be all about salads and sandwiches. Dinners, you have a lot of pastas, meat and rice dishes, and sushi. And late night orders seem to be pizza and then cold but not frozen desserts. And this personally aligns with the experience that I've had with utilizing some of these food delivery apps for the last several years. There are just certain food categories or dishes that I will not order on Grubhub or Uber Eats because I know the experience is not going to meet my expectation level, even though I love certain foods. It's just that those items, when they go through that full process and come to me maybe 45 minutes later, they are just not at the level that I think is acceptable. And there's other substitute items, categories of cuisine or dish types that work much better that I tend to order at a lot higher frequency. So you have to ask yourself, if I notice that there's trends on Grubhub, the restaurateur also notices those things. They notice certain trends in terms of what is being ordered, or maybe what are they getting chargebacks for, or complaints on Yelp, or a ton of other things. Like, because of that, do they shift what they offer in certain markets? Do they change up dish types that are offered online? Do they not open certain types of restaurants because they know that it's not going to have the best chance of getting a ton of delivery orders? I think that's a real risk. That's something that needs to be addressed. But how can this be potentially overcome? Let's start at the food level. Maybe there's an opportunity for like food technology or food scientists to come up with solutions that make the deliverability of certain foods better, have that customer experience be much better. And you'll see large restaurant brands like McDonald's trying to address this. They addressed this before through the drive-thru and ensuring that their fries would stay crisp longer for when somebody picked it up from the drive-thru and went home. Now with the extended time that happens with food delivery, they have to think about that again. They've asked their supplier, Lamb Weston, their potato supplier, to come up with some solutions that keep fries crispier longer in the environment in which third-party delivery food apps kind of operate in. Now, this opens up a ton of other questions in terms of food safety, and do you have to claim maybe things that could be like a GMO, or a lot of other conversation that could be opened up. But regardless, I'm sure that food scientists across the labs and across suppliers are getting inundated with requests from a lot of these large restaurant brands asking, can we overcome this? Is there possibilities for us to innovate our existing supply chain to allow for a better experience of some of these products, of some of these dishes? Now, another thing that McDonald's does specifically is that they change the vessel, the packaging vessel in which they include the fries in for delivery that's different than the in-restaurant experience or a drive-through experience. And that kind of opens up another possible innovation to fix things, is that most of the issues with packaging is because it kind of traps in steam. That steam creates a sogginess to the product, and it becomes not desirable for the customer to order certain dishes or certain food types. If you've ever seen your pizza delivery guy, they have insulated bags that keep the pizza warm for longer. They can batch up deliveries and kind of make those a little bit longer. So why hasn't there been any like anti-steam type packaging that has come out yet? So that's an opportunity that I'm sure a lot of like packaging companies are trying to overcome right now. But maybe it just comes down to lessening the delivery time, like making sure that the delivery person can pick up and deliver that item in a much more efficient way. And there seems to be two approaches that are happening right now. First one is that restaurants are taking a lesson from grocery stores, mass retailers, and remodeling their stores to reconsider the flows of traffic and the needs of their certain stakeholders. So certain restaurants maybe have pickup only doors or have allocated square footage for the delivery driver to come in and out very quickly without interrupting the in-restaurant dining experience. So relooking at those flows of today's usage of restaurants can potentially help things. You can also kind of redesign those restaurants to include maybe dedicated drive-through windows or pickup locations. So then the speed from when somebody picks it up to delivery starts to cut down a little bit. Second way to look at it is just kind of fully reinventing what we think about a restaurant, taking away all the in-dining experience and just creating what they call ghost kitchens. Ghost kitchens are essentially just a kitchen or multiple kitchens. It could be just one kitchen pumping out tons of different food concepts or virtual restaurants, or it could be owned by multiple different restaurant concepts. But essentially, there's no dining experience. It's really just set up for delivery drivers to either come in and pick up the food quickly straight from the kitchen, or it could be set up through a similar kind of drive-through method where it's just going straight from the kitchen to the driver. It's not open for any consumer experiences. This is still only set up for these third-party food delivery apps. And if you think about the concept as a whole, and if there's a validation to the concept, think about Uber's founder, Travis Kalanick. Though he was ousted and people can kind of say that there was other reasons why he sold all of his shares of Uber, a lot of it was coming down to the timing that he sold those shares of Uber that he could pump it into his new startup called Cloud Kitchens, where it's really just kind of taking that ghost kitchen concept and scaling it out nationally. So if he, the godfather or just the main person that's thought about some of this gig economy that is really running the infrastructure of these food delivery apps, is saying this is the next thing and he's putting all of his chips in there, has to show you that there's probably some validity to this trend. Now, Starbucks has kind of taken it and iterated it a little bit because they are actually creating locations that don't have any dining experiences, but a consumer can go up and use it. Through their mobile app, you can order and you pick it up from a store window. It's kind of this adaptation of buy online, pick up somewhere, or pick up in store. And this reduces friction, but it also allows restaurants, in this case Starbucks, to add some customer flair with reducing transaction friction. So you still are meeting a barista, your pickup barista. They're able to kind of extend some pleasantries. You still have that customer experience touch point, making sure that they're good, they have everything they need, they understand the process, but you don't have a lot of the hustle and bustle that happens with just people being inside of an in-dining experience. An additional concept that you're seeing happen with a restaurant like Sweetgreen, they began to test and scale out some of these locker systems in downtown metro areas where they essentially pull a bunch of orders, they have them ready at a certain locker that is around a highly populated downtown area, and then that cuts down on that delivery person needing to stop in at each particular building, riding elevators, and having that experience of whatever is ordered, maybe a hot salad, being diminished by adding that extra complexity. This kind of simplifies everything and provides a better experience for the customer. The final adaptation that I've been seeing that could have some potential benefits to the restaurant industry is through either not cooking or partially cooking the food that's ordered for delivery. An example of not cooking that's been utilized by a few large restaurant brands is both through Panera and Subway, which they essentially created grocery stores or online grocery stores that could be ordered through delivery apps. You can pick up some of your grocery staples that are ordered and have extra availability through Panera and Subway, or their suppliers that maybe have some extra capabilities now that food service was a little bit down. This was just another way for people maybe to pick up some ingredients, especially when maybe you didn't need everything, or maybe you were missing certain foods within your favorite restaurant that you wanted to make at home because you didn't want to go in store, and maybe the experience of it being delivered was not all that ideal, being cooked fully. It's just kind of a different spin on addressing the problem. Another way is that you saw fancier restaurants, I know Fogo de Chao specifically, were putting together some of these different like meal kit type of non-cooked offerings where essentially they would have everything for you to make the same experience that you could get in the restaurant, down to the seasonings and sauces that you would need. And then also thinking about like partially cooking the food. If you are concerned with maybe having your food stay crispy and you know that the experience, you're not going to be able to do that, think about adapting a model like Papa Murphy's, which is a pizza Subway mashup that they'll kind of top and create a pizza that all you need to do is just put it in your oven and bake it. You can go to that level where everything is raw and ready to go. It just needs to be put into your oven, or it could be something where you kind of par cook off certain things, or you get things ready just to pop in the oven for 5 more minutes. That would both warm it up and create some crispiness level if that's something that is desired in that dish. Regardless of any of these adaptations, the important thing to think about is that these are not going to be short-term things that you just do and then it's going to go away. This is all feeding into a secular long-term trend that is going to incrementally become more important over time. Yes, COVID-19 did accelerate things maybe 2 to 3 years in this area, but even after COVID-19 is over, you might see people going back to their existing behaviors for a little bit of time, but long-term, incrementally, 1%, 2% over time, you're going to see things shift back towards that direction. So for you to be sitting on your hands and just waiting for all these things to hit you in the face again, it's going to be a problem because they're not going to hit you in such a hard way. They're going to hit you over time. And by the time you notice them, it's going to be too late. Your competitors are already out innovating you. So because of that, you have to think about this being something that can affect a ton of different industries, and how this can affect the CPG industry is in a ton of different areas. Firstly, and maybe most obviously, is in the category of food service, and how a lot of large CPG brands have food service within their revenue and sales channels, and that being a big part of their business. Think about a brand like Coca-Cola and them not only having a ton of concentrate sales getting done through fountain beverages, that driving sales and also being a big profitable area for them. If consumers are not going in and buying fountain beverages anymore, how do you replace that? You got to think about that. Also, within some of the kind of quick service restaurants and somebody grabbing something and then grabbing a 20-ounce Coca-Cola, if they're not going into the stores in the same volume and each year it decreases a little bit more, how do you overcome this impulse purchase add-on that happens at the restaurant? Now in this example, you can see maybe some possible things that are already kind of happening in market. You had PepsiCo go out and buy SodaStream. They can reallocate some of their concentrate over to some of these smaller consumer-centric variants for the SodaStream and still make a little less probably profitability because of the pack size being smaller, but that's an adaptation for the consumer. But additionally, if you're thinking about some of these quick grab and go impulse buys, you might need to extend how you are treating these restaurants as partners and increasing not only the partnerships with the restaurants and making sure they maybe bundle things together, maybe create some specials, making sure that your items are added to the available offerings for that restaurant on a third-party food delivery app, but also considering working with those third-party food delivery apps to create certain promotions for free deliveries or whatever, working at more of a corporate level and having them do some of the communications down to the individual restaurants. Now, if you think post-pandemic world that meal kits are going to be something that continues to flourish, you need to ask yourself from a CPG standpoint, can we adapt products into a format that works best for these meal kits? Instead of somebody like Blue Apron having their customer maybe make a spicy ketchup for a dish, Heinz includes their new organic spicy ketchup packets in there with some small information card that tells a little bit of storytelling for the brand. And you have to think, if more food is going to be consumed either through meal kits or any of the other ways, you think about maybe the dullness or maybe the flavor profiles not working exactly to the individual customer's expectations. Is there more opportunity for seasonings or sauce occasions to be increased or maybe lessened? And that's something you need to consider in terms of SKU rationalization. Or is it just a matter of changing some of your communications to adapt to this new meal kit or in-home eating that is at a much more elevated level? Circling back to certain food types or dishes, popularity of them, does that affect being unpopular, or maybe on the flip side, something being popular? Does that on the flip side then make a consumer want to make those at home more or less? It's something to pay attention to, because say consumers don't want to purchase burgers because the fries and things are not all that great. Does that mean they're going to make more of those at home? And because of that, should you then be thinking, wow, we need to be putting more marketing effort, more product development effort towards addressing that need that's going to be at home in a more grocery CPG way over them buying a lot more of that in a restaurant application? And do those levels of popularity changing, does it create something to the level of creating pricing changes in supply and demand because of such a stark change? If there is something like that and you see a arbitrage opportunity for product development or just something in your existing product offerings today, can you take advantage of that? It's something to be paying attention to. Finally, thinking about some of the successive packaging that's happening both from food delivery and from meal kits, does that create consumers having such a heightened sensitivity to sustainability concerns and them really kind of reaching that towards all areas, even the CPG industry? Should you be thinking about your sustainability efforts? And is that a way for you to market and appeal towards some of these people that are having those concerns in their head today? So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know sometimes professionals get way too hyper-focused in a certain area and they forget to zoom out and realize how some things that are happening in one area of the economy can create a ton of counter effects in their particular area. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.